was the Jack the Stripper case that I had covered. I had mentioned a man named Harold Jones who was a suspect in that case. So this video today is going to be about Harold Jones and the crimes that he had committed prior to the Jack the Stripper crimes taking place and him possibly being a suspect and all of that kind of jazz. So before I begin, I really hope that the birds, if you can hear birds, they're not distracting, or that maybe they're in some way relaxing. But yeah, so before I start, this is a true crime video, and this case involves the murder and sexual assault of children, and it is very brutal. So if that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, if true crime isn't the kind of ASMR that you want to listen to, then please do click off the video now and maybe come back for something a bit different at another time. So I'm just going to get straight to the video. Notes are over here, as usual. So, Harold Jones was born on the 11th of January 1906 in a town called Abertillery in Monmouthshire in Wales. His father worked in the coal mines and his mother stayed at home and cared for Harold and his three younger siblings. Growing up, Jones was into sports, particularly boxing, and he actually wanted to become a professional boxer when he grew up. He grew up in a Christian household and on occasions would play the organ at his local church services. Throughout his school years, Jones was thought of to be quite popular, and all round it seemed like he was well liked in the community. As the oldest child, the responsibility of helping his family fell on Jones at quite a young age, so he left school at 14. Jones started working at a local oil and seed merchant named Mortimer's Stores, where he was well liked by his employer and the customers, and at times he would have been trusted to open and close the shop or run the shop on his own without any supervision. At this time, the town was bustling with coal miners and coal mining families who were just trying to get by, and the sense of community was quite high. So when 8-year-old Frida Burnell went missing, the community came together in her search. On the 5th of February 1921, Frida was asked to run an errand for her father. She walked from her home in Earl Street to Mortimer's Stores in Somerset Street, where she visited to purchase grit and spice for poultry. After some time had passed and Frida's father had realised that she had not returned home, he went to the shop himself to see if he could find his daughter. There he spoke to Harold Jones, who told the worried father that yes, his daughter had been in the shop at around 9:05 that morning and had left 10 minutes later, and he hadn't seen her again since. Around 6 hours after Frida's father had started searching, he contacted the police, who immediately started an investigation. The police and the town locals all started to search for Frida late into the evening with no further signs of her anywhere. The following morning, the search resumed, and around 7:30 am, a local coal miner came across what he initially thought was just a bundle of rags. This was in an alleyway, and as he got closer, he realised that it was in fact the girl's body. When her body was examined, it was discovered that she had been killed in the early morning the previous day, and it was a brutal and horrific attack. Her cause of death was blunt force trauma and strangulation, and it was evident that an attempt had been made to rape her. During the investigation, it was discovered that on the morning of the 5th of February, screaming was heard, coming from a shed behind Mortimer's Stores. At this time, the only person that had a key to the shed was Harold Jones. On searching the shed, the police found a handkerchief that belonged to Frida, and they also found an axe which they believed was used to kill the young girl. Two of Jones's friends also claimed that around 10:20 a.m. that morning he had been acting strange while going into the shed, telling them to keep quiet and not wanting them to come into the shed with him. Jones was questioned and later arrested for the murder. Jones denied all of these charges, and on the 21st of June 1921 he was acquitted at trial and returned home to Artillery, where the locals cheered him on and welcomed him back with open arms, just not wanting to believe that a 15-year-old boy could commit these crimes. So it wasn't long until that all changed, and not long after his acquittal, the whole town was thrown into a tailspin again. On the afternoon of the 8th of July 1921, the parents of a young local girl named Florence Irene Little started to worry when their daughter hadn't returned home. Florence had been out that morning playing hopscotch with her friend Flossie Jones outside of the Joneses' home at 10 Darren Road. On realising Florence hadn't returned home, her mother Elsie went to the Jones household and spoke with Flossie's older brother, Harold, who informed her that yes, her daughter had been playing outside with his sister earlier that day, but that she had just run off. At around 11:15 p.m. that evening, the worried mother contacted the police, who started a door-to-door search to try and find the young child. The locals also started searching the area in large crowds, and among these searchers was Harold himself. The next morning at around 8:30 a.m, Harold Jones left his home as the police commenced a search of the property with the consent of his father, Philip. They discovered a trapdoor to the attic which appeared to have what they thought was a bloodstain that had been washed off. On entering the attic, the officers discovered the body of young Florence along with a bloodstained knife. They also discovered a blood-stained plank of wood which had been hidden behind a boiler. Harold Jones's father, Philip, left the home whenever he was informed of this by the police and went to find his son. Whenever he found him, he brought him back to the police, and Harold Jones was then arrested and taken into custody. At this time, there were still a large number of people in the community who were angry that Harold Jones had been put through such an ordeal not that long ago, and they didn't believe that he could have done what he was being accused of. So crowds gathered at the police station demanding that he be released. The officer in charge of the investigation, Superintendent Lewis, spoke to the crowd, informing them of the following. I have found the body of the child in the attic of Harold Jones, foully murdered, and I have arrested Harold Jones. I think this is all I can tell you, and it would help us if you disperse and go to your homes. During the trial for the murder of Florence, Harold Jones surprisingly admitted to the murder. He also provided the police with a statement where he admitted the murder of Frida Burnell, claiming that he had a desire to kill. During the trial, the brutal details of Florence's murder came to light. Jones had lured Florence into his home after noticing her playing with his sister, under the impression that she was helping him with an errand. Shortly after entering the house, the young girl was strangled. She was then beaten over the head with a plank of wood and dragged to the kitchen sink, where Jones, using his father's pocket knife, cut her throat from ear to ear. He then moved her body to the attic and went and bathed himself and cleaned the blood from the kitchen. The trial went ahead on the 1st of November 1921, and after just 1 hour, Jones was found guilty. At the time of the trial, Jones was still under 16 years old. I think he was actually only 2 months away from being 16, or he was 2 months away from being the age that he would have needed to be to have faced the death penalty. So he couldn't be sentenced to death. Instead, he was just detained at His Majesty's pleasure, which is just a prison sentence. He was given life imprisonment. Harold Jones remained in prison for 20 years. He was released on the 6th of December 1941 at the age of 35, which is still very young. This was against the advice of the prison psychiatrist, who claimed that Jones had admitted to him that he had a desire to kill and did not want to be cured of it. On his release, Jones joined the Merchant Navy under a new identity, and in 1948 he moved to London under the alias Harry Stevens, where he resided for the remainder of his life. On January 2nd, 1971, Harold Jones died of bone cancer in London. At the time of his death, he was married with one child. It seemed that prior to his death, he had been living what was believed to have been just an ordinary life. His family were unaware of his crimes, and whenever he was dying, he had asked his wife to ensure that Harold Jones was the name that was written on his headstone. So, in my last true crime video, I had covered the case of the Hammersmith killings, or the Jack the Stripper murders, and detailed a little bit about Harold Jones. So it's widely speculated that Harold Jones could be behind the Hammersmith killings, which took place in the 60s in London. This is yet to be proven, but it's kind of hard to believe that someone with his kind of mindset would just go about an ordinary life. Jones was also suspected of the murder of a 12-year-old girl from Swansea named Muriel Drinkwater. Muriel was murdered in June 1946. DNA found on her coat in a reopened investigation in 2003 was tested against Jones's DNA, but this claim was disproven. So he was only ever charged with the 2 murders, and as far as anyone kind of knew, they were the only 2 that he had committed. But there is speculation that he was involved in the Hammersmith killings. I am not sure. I'm really not sure what I think about that. Possibly. It's very likely because he was living in the area. But just thinking about the murders that he committed when he was a child, when he was 15, were against children, and the Jack the Stripper murders were against female women, grown-up prostitutes. So I don't know what I think about that, but yeah, so that is the end of that case. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit of a short one, but yeah, I wanted to cover this one, just following on from the last video that I had done, and I have a few more that are ready to go. So